copyright, cover licenses, and commitment to your music business panel. My name is Tera CATALLO, aka Tera C Music, and I am joined by Carlos EIENE, aka Insane in the Rain Music.
Hi.
And Julia Henderson.
Hi.
All right, so we are going to discuss pretty much everything that you need to know when it comes to getting your covers licensed legally. As cover musicians, we want to make sure that we do everything that we can to ensure our revenue is secured and risk-free. So let's jump right in.
All right, wait. We got to make sure they can see our
yes, I know.
Our
Give
slides.
me 1 second. I'm getting there.
All right.
We're
Give a girl
there.
a minute.
Okay, we're set.
Hey.
All right. Let's begin this legal throwdown with some common myths and misconceptions relating to legal use. This is chat interactive. So I would like you in chat to answer yes or no to the following questions, or the following myths. Is this true or false? Myth number one, or actually thing number one, putting fair use in your video description absolves you of all legal ramifications. This is false. I don't know if you thought this would get you anywhere, but it will get you absolutely nowhere. You can't just tell somebody that the law doesn't apply to you. How about this next one? As a cover artist, you can give permission for others to use your covers however they please without any ramifications in a Twitch stream or YouTube video. This one is also false because, well, we'll explain why later, but it's not true. You can't just do that. Did you know that? No? That's why you're here. Next one. Next one. Copyright laws do not apply as long as you're not making any money on your content. Is this true? What's that, Dora? False? That's nice job. False. Falso. It's false. Regardless if you're making money, copyright law still applies here. I've got another for you. Hear about this one. Oh, this one's spicy for the content creators in the house. Revenue from Patreon is just a donation, not money in exchange for goods and services. How about this one? It's kind of tricky. What do you think?
This one is tricky.
It's tricky.
Here.
Well, I think that our Twitch viewers are hip to patterns. So this one is also false. Your revenue from Patreon is taxed just like any other money you get through doing business and such. Last one. I can use sounds from video games in my cover or remix and not experience any problems with licensing.
Oh boy.
Wait, you mean I can't sample the coin sound or the 1-up jingle in my hip chill step EDM Mario track? False. You cannot do that without permission. Thank you for joining
Carlos.
me. Thank you for joining me. I was very excited to do this.
Thank you.
And now we're going to talk about what you actually can learn from copyright.
Yes, exactly.
Copyright. What is it? Why should you care? Copyright is quite literally the right to copy. So if an author writes a work or a performer makes a recording, no one else has the right to make copies of it without the author or performer's permission. Now, not adhering to said copyright law can result in the least of your worries, which would be a takedown notice, or your biggest fear would be legal action against you. So you got to watch out for that.
The Nintendo ninjas, as they say.
Yes. We've got a couple types of music rights. Now, unfortunately, music, when it comes to copyright, is quite a bit more complicated than some other streams of media, perhaps. So we've got two main streams of commercial music rights. One, which copyrights the work itself. So that can be your composition, that can be your arrangement, that could be the lyrics that you put to it. And then the other side is the phonographic rights. And now this is the recording itself. So this is big to keep in mind, folks, going forward in this panel, that the work, so the writing, is separate than the actual recording of said work. Because we are cover artists, we are doing covers, we are doing separate recordings of one work. And then underneath those commercial music rights, we have licenses. Three main types of licenses when we're talking about music here are your mechanical license, your sync license, and your print license. Now, don't worry if you don't know what those mean right now, because we're going through each and every one of these in great detail, except maybe print license. We'll gloss over that one, but hey, that's cool. The other two we'll cover.
Yes, very
Yeah.
true. All right. So first up, we're going to do mechanical license. Okay. So this is the specific license that you need when you want to distribute a recording of a cover that you've made onto digital stores like Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon, Deezer, Tidal, such and such. Okay. Now, any commercially released recording in the US is eligible for what's called compulsory mechanical licensing. Okay, and this is per US law. As long as there is a recording, a release in the US of the original track, then it is eligible for this license. Okay, and it allows you as the licensee to distribute the cover of the song without needing to actually go individually to the copyright holder and discuss those kinds of negotiations and figure out how much you're going to pay them and stuff like that. So, as long as the arrangement that you've made does not change the basic melody or the fundamental character of the work, right, then it actually falls under this umbrella of this compulsory mechanical licensing. Okay, and so if it does change the basic melody or the character of the work, then it's kind of considered a derivative work, and those are not protected under this. Okay, unless you actually go in, and email them or somehow get in touch with the copyright holders and discuss it one-on-one to get their consent and be able to license it that way. Okay, so examples of derivative works. You've got adding or changing lyrics. That counts as a derivative work. Okay, if you may do a translation, if you do mashup, if you do a parody, those are all considered derivative works. Okay. All right, and then the easy way to obtain a mechanical license, because you're probably thinking, okay, well, if I have to do that, how exactly do I do that, right? So what a lot of us do is we use some websites to kind of figure out whether a track is licensable. So the one that I think most of us use is VGMDB. We check the database and we see if there is an official US release of that track or of the album. Okay. And again, if it's released in the US, if there's a price in the USD, then you're good to go. That means that it's licensable. Okay. You can also check online stores like Apple Music. That's a pretty good one to check to see if there's a soundtrack or if that track is available. If it is, then that's also that's good to go because it's in the US Apple Store. Okay. And using that information, you can distributor. So example, Soundrop, there's other distributors as well, but I think most of us use Soundrop now. So yeah, let's go ahead and just briefly go through the process together. Okay. So give me 1 second. Let me load up the page. Okay. So this is VGMDB. Okay. So this is what the website looks like. Say we want to do Counterattack from Xenoblade Chronicles 2. Okay, let's look. I know the window's a little small, but let's search Xenoblade Chronicles 2. There's a couple over here. There's Type A, Type B, Type C. Type C is the one that we want because if you look over here, Amazon US digital, iTunes US digital. That means that anything from this long list of Xenoblade tracks is licensable. And look, Counterattack is right there. Okay, so you're able to use this website to determine whether something's licensable, and when you actually upload the cover to Soundrop, then you can input this information, so it makes it easier for them to license said cover.
So now if you want to capitalize on Pyra and Mithra being in Smash, you can!
Yes, you can.
That's actually a really good strategy because
I'm
my
so
old
happy.
stuff where like when
I'm so
Sephiroth made it
happy.
in, they're like one-winged angel. People are like,
yep.
Sephiroth's in Smash, comment.
Yeah.
I get so excited.
Yep. So I may or may not have capitalized on that a little bit today, but that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So we're gonna continue with the mechanical license. So let's say that you went through all the steps, you found out it was licensable, you uploaded it to the distributor, and you got that license secured, you've got that cover out on the stores, now you're making some money. Okay, let's try to figure out where does that money go once the cover starts generating revenue, okay? So from, say, the download, right? If you get $1, right? Someone pays $1 for a digital download, 9.1 cents per that composition. So say you only got one license, then that's just the 9.1 cents. For any track that's less than 5 minutes, basically. So 9.1 cents of that $1 will go to the original copyright holder, okay? If it's longer than 5 minutes, then you have that 1.75 cents per minute rate, okay? And streaming royalties, right? Because this is for digital downloads. Streaming royalties are a little more complicated. I tried to find some information about it, and then I gave up because I was like, this is way too intense.
This is very complicated.
Yeah. So we'll just say it's complicated. And then medleys. So a lot of people have kind of warned people against doing medleys because of this 9.1 cents per composition. Because say you have like 5 different tracks, that means you need 5 licenses, okay? So that's not just 9.1 cents total, that's 9.1 cents per composition, right? So that actually ends up being almost half of that like $1 download, right? So that's why a lot of people kind of shy away from medleys. You can totally do it, but you have to decide whether or not it's actually a feasible idea.
Yeah, they're a great way to go. As someone in the chat says, a good way to go in the negative on each track sold. There you go.
Yeah,
Seriously.
If you want to lose
Plus
money,
your,
if you want to lose money and promote game music, distribute your medleys. There
your
you go.
upfront licensing costs will be
it
quintupled
eats up,
as
yeah,
well.
it eats
so.
up that
Hooray!
revenue, so.
Yeah.
Don't do it, folks.
Yeah.
Unless
Yeah.
you can. But
You
don't.
can, but it's
You
just
can.
yeah.
Or just separate, like as Thomas is saying in the chat, you can separate your medleys into like
Yes.
individual songs.
Exactly. You could have it on YouTube as a medley, but then for purposes of streaming and downloads, you could separate them into tracks.
Yeah, absolutely. And then if you are using Soundrop, then there is a revenue share. So 15% of your revenue will go to them. And different distributors have different rates and different things, but we were supposed to have someone from Soundrop on the panel. So that's why we kind of decided to do a little bit more in depth in terms of Soundrop stuff. So, but yeah, that is the revenue share for Soundrop at least, but different distributors have different things. And then the rest of that, so after all that has been taken, the rest will go to you and any other artists that you've shared splits with, right? If you collaborate with someone, you do 50-50 split, then okay, then that's going to get split up to you guys equally.
So I've got, Tara, just before you go to the next slide,
Yes.
I've got one more thing that I had added that maybe just didn't get like refreshed on that slide.
Oh, okay.
Because 25 to 30% goes to the music store or service. So we can't forget that.
Yes.
So it's like, okay, money goes, you license your cover, money goes to original right holder. That's that first bullet point. Then you've got 25 to 30% going to your music store, right? So that's the partner. Soundrop would call that the partner. 15% going to Soundrop for admin. And then finally the rest is for you. So like, it's not like you're getting, you're when you're doing covers, you're missing out on a chunk of revenue, like, and that's just the like how it is for us because we have to split things more. So if you are really good at originals and can make that work, like if you're thinking as a per track basis, you're going to make more money doing originals. However, they might not be as commercially viable for you. So that's the trade-off.
Yes.
There we go.
So this all sounds hunky dory so far, but like, what if I just want to upload everything to Bandcamp and just not do any of this?
Huh.
Like, okay, I can go to bandcamp.com, log in, and upload my album. What's stopping me from doing that?
Everything, Carlos.
Tell us all about it, Carlos.
Everything and nothing at the same time.
Well, Bandcamp does allow direct uploads of user-generated content, which is different than places like Apple Music and Spotify, where you have to submit through a distributor. I'm not sure if Spotify for artists has like a direct submission thing. I think there was some talk about that, but I don't know much about it. But you would think that, oh, well, it's Bandcamp. I can just upload whatever I want because no one's stopping me. Technically, you can, but you could get in trouble. Because Bandcamp uses user-generated content, Soundrop does not distribute to Bandcamp. which makes sense, and that's probably how it's going to stay. And because of that, Soundrop cannot secure the mechanical licenses on your behalf for the content it's not distributing, which also makes sense because, it's like what their service does is they keep track of how many times your song has been sold or streamed, and then they will handle the payments of those of the proper royalty rate to the original rights holder based on that data that they get. And if they're not getting any data in from a place like Bandcamp, then they can't really do that job. So therefore, you should the way to do this is you do it yourself. And I've actually done this for my recent album Synovation, which is listed on Bandcamp. What me and my team did is we did a big bulk license purchase through Easy Song Licensing before. So essentially, what this looked like was we made a list of all the compositions that were used, and set an amount of downloads. I don't remember what the amount was, but it was higher than what we expected the initial sales volume to be. And then total all that up, and did stuff for digital did the stuff for the CD licenses that were being sold through Bandcamp and the download licenses that were also being sold on Bandcamp, and put that all up and rounded up into one big number. And it was a very, very, very big number, because you have to the proper way to do this is to get everything up front, so every sale is taken care of. This can be financially unfeasible for a lot of artists, and especially if you're doing cover stuff on Bandcamp and you're not working with capital up front to get these licenses. And frankly, there's a lot of stuff on Bandcamp that is not licensed, that just kind of sits there and is at risk of being taken down legally.
Yes.
And you can get these licenses, as I said, through bulk purchasing with Easy Song Licensing if you want to go the compulsory way, or you can have direct negotiations with the copyright holder. I also did this for my album Live at Grillby's, which is music from Undertale composed by Toby Fox. I had a wonderfully short email exchange with Toby. It's like, can I cover your songs? And he was like, yes, you have to pay me. And then I said, okay, how about this? And he's like, sure, sign this contract. And I said, okay, here's contract, let's sign. And that was it. We figured out we did a rate. He's actually getting from the sales of the album, getting a lot more than he would have if it was just a compulsory mechanical licensing rate. So that's another strategy, but it's not always doable, especially if you can't get in direct contact with the composer, like for something from a AAA company. Right. And a funny thing, I'm not sure it's funny. You might think that, oh well, what if I just put my stuff on Bandcamp and have it set at name your price, which means that someone can download it without paying if they don't want to, and anything that comes in is just extra. The problem with that is that while it might feel ethical for you to do that, and I'm not making any direct money off of this, the original composer is still losing, or the original rights holder, I should say, is losing out on that potential revenue, or that revenue stream, based on the licenses that should be paid to license that composition. Yeah. Like we said earlier, of how that with that myth and misconception of giving stuff away for free means that the law doesn't apply to you. This is not true. So you still have to pay licensing fees, even with name your price on Bandcamp.
Yeah, because they're still entitled to that rate that they get. You know what I mean?
Right.
So,
right.
Good. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Next is sync license. All right.
Hey.
Julia's up for sync license.
Can I make my joke?
So,
Can I make my joke? That the sync license is where you sink all your money into.
There it is. There it is.
See, when I make a joke like that, he takes off his headphones and storms out of the room. And when he makes a joke like that, he has a fit of laughter at himself.
Because I know how funny I'm not.
Because you're the only one laughing. Okay. I'm only allowed to say this because he knows I love him a lot. So, okay. Sync license allows a person to synchronize a copyrighted piece of audio with visual media. So this is separate from our mechanical, right? So even if you've received your proper mechanical license and your stuff is on streaming platforms and your stuff is in iTunes, or even you're doing physical CDs and you've got a mechanical license for that, that's awesome. Unfortunately, if you want to put your music to a movie, commercials, video games, even like website, YouTube, anything with visual media, this requires a separate license. And unlike mechanical licensing, there is no compulsory equivalent. There's no set rate for composers, the ones that we were talking about before, right? The 9.1 cents stuff. And sync licenses are most often commonly obtained via direct negotiation with the copyright holder. They can be very expensive. They could, like, depending on who the copyright, like, you're not just going to call up Nintendo and be like, hey guys, Nintendo,
hey Koji,
I want to make
Koji-san.
Koji-san, I want to make a YouTube video. This makes sense though. This is done by design so that the copyright holder has some control over what kind of media their music is put to, so that you don't have some like Nazi propaganda film with the wow, like. So yeah, the basically the moral of the story is they're hard to get. And Carlos is going to go a little bit into like what is now happening because of that.
So
in the modern world.
Okay, so let's say that Nazi propaganda video did exist, right? Perhaps it does. I don't know. And perhaps it's been taken down already. It exists where there's some unauthorized use of this content, right? And I'm the copyright holder. Let's pretend I'm Koji Kondo. Hello, and I want to get rid of it. I don't want this to exist because it is an improper use of my content, and it was not legally executed. For this, we have the DMCA. The DMCA, standing for the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, was written into law in the U.S. in 1998, intended to prevent illegal distribution of copyrighted works by allowing copyright holders to request takedowns. And I'm sure you've seen a DMCA takedown at some point of somebody on YouTube using a copyrighted piece of content, and then that video is either removed or blocked in certain parts of the world. Yep. By distributing your covers without the proper license, you are at risk of receiving a DMCA takedown notice or being DMCA'd. I love how it's a verb now. Like you don't want to get DMCA'd by me. I mean, I don't know exactly how that works. And you may have in I think it was like November of 2020. There was a lot of activity surrounding the DMCA on Twitch. Yep. And you might think that, oh, that's because the law changed and something's happening then. Not really. The law hasn't changed, I think, a crazy amount. It's probably changed a bit in the past, however, 20. Oh, actually, I know how many years it's been around.
How old are you, Carlos?
I was gonna say it's the number of years that the DMCA has been around is the exact same number of years that I have been around. It's actually, I like to think of it as the Digital Millennium Carlos Act.
No.
But different platforms have been enforcing it differently. So we're going to discuss how the DMCA is relevant to you. Sorry, I'm just laughing.
Robbie says, ow, my most of me.
How the DMCA is relevant to you on YouTube and Twitch, which are the platforms you are probably most familiar with and using it on. I wonder, does TikTok have DMCAs? Probably. Like, but what about all those like, if someone were to use Gangplank Galleon as a sea shanty, can we TikTok that? I don't know. Anyway, so the DMCA on YouTube. DMCA takedowns can incur copyright strikes on a YouTube channel. 3 strikes results in the termination of YouTube channel, which is obviously bad. One important caveat here is that a copyright claim on a video is not the same thing as a copyright strike. Very different.
Very important to know.
This is a very important distinction. In fact, I would argue that copyright claims are a good thing for the most part if they're done correctly. The reason that these are a good thing is because this is basically implied acknowledgement from the original copyright holder. They've acknowledged the fact that you're doing something with their material, and they've specified how they would like their material to be handled. In an ideal world, this is what happens all the time. Unfortunately, there's a lot of bad claims and fraudulent claims put out there where like somebody has entered their cover of something into the content ID database, and that makes YouTube think that they're the actual rights holder when they're not. That's a problem that's probably bigger than the scope of this channel. But in an ideal world, like all of our like claimers would be like the original rights holder. Like if I cover a song from Persona 5, I should be expecting a claim from Atlas on that video saying, okay, you've acknowledged the fact that you're covering Last Surprise from Persona 5. This is okay. Your video maybe remains to be watchable worldwide. And they can specify the policy of we want a revenue share, or we want all the money that's generated from this video. And it should be up to them to make that decision. I mean, obviously a revenue share would be preferable for us, because we want to make some money off of it.
Right.
As long as it's legitimately Atlas and not some random person who put their stuff in content ID. So stupid. With copyright strikes, however, the original copyright holder has to initiate a takedown request. So like this is mostly manual, I think. But it's a bigger deal than a claim, because claims are generally like automatically done with content ID, but these copyright strikes are like removals of videos for using content in a bad way. The DMCA also applies on Twitch. It's a little bit more recent, this development. The DMCA on Twitch can result in a takedown or muting of one of your VODs, and having this done too many times on your account can result in an account ban. I think there's probably more negative repercussions on Twitch. I'm just not familiar of. But there's a lot. There's a lot of stuff.
So someone clarified in the chat that the strikes and takedowns are always manual.
Okay, impossible. Okay, got it.
Oh,
That makes sense.
Yes, okay.
It should be manual.
Yeah, it really should. Like if it, yeah, I'd be a little worried if it wasn't manual.
Yeah,
so.
you could just automatic strikes on your channel. Yikes,
Oof.
that sounds not fun.
Yeah.
Ugh.
All right, nice.
Claims are a good thing.
All right, last type of license. We're going to go through this really quickly because I want to make sure that we have some time for questions at the end. So this is a license if you ever want to distribute your arrangements of like a copyrighted composition and you want to actually have sheet music available for sale. Again, there's no compulsory equivalent here. Unfortunately, the mechanical licensing is pretty nice to have. It's pretty easy to get. But the print licensing, it's kind of like sync licensing. It's not very easy to get. So, however, there are some sheet music distributors that have contracts with some companies already in place so that they're able to get the print licenses rather easily for you, and you're able to distribute your sheet music arrangements and just have them for sale. And so they're able to figure out, okay, that much money goes to this company and then the rest goes to you, blah, blah, blah. So there's two websites that we were able to think of. There's Sheet Music Plus and then Music Notes. I believe Music Notes has been around much longer, and they definitely have secured contracts with a lot of different companies over the years, so they're probably like the best one to go to. But Sheet Music Plus also has that option for you. So all right, next we have a case study, and Julia is going to kind of go over what happens if you use sampled content without a license.
Okay. Let me tell you a tale. May 19th, 2019, Minecraft YouTuber Mumbo Jumbo, I'm gonna lean in real close, Mumbo Jumbo received over 400 consecutive claims, not strikes, right? We remember the difference, on his videos from Warner Chappell Music. It was within the span of a few hours, like just bang in his inbox, like one after the other. The claims were from his intro song called Can't Stop Me, which was by a producer he had, I guess, contracted to make this intro song. Pro Leader. Man, I don't know. Let's go Pro Leader. Hey,
Pro Leader.
Cool. Yeah. So these guys had a written agreement between each other to be able to use the song. Mumbo Jumbo was under the assumption that this song was 100% original material. But unbeknownst to Mumbo Jumbo, Pro-Liter had sampled Gene Chandler's 1967 song "Nothing Can Stop Me," owned by Warner Chappell, and neither party had received sample clearance for use in media. Folks, what kind of license is that? Sample clearance for use in... They would have needed the sync license, but more specifically, they would have needed the sync license like to use a sampled bit of material, which is like even trickier. Moral of the story, a couple things we can take away from this. We can agree, poor Mumbo Jumbo, because, you know, unfortunately, he did not do his due diligence and make sure that his producer was not using any sampled material. And even though the producer, you could say the producer's at fault here, he should have known better. Yeah. Well, like, unfortunately, if you're the one using it for your content, even if you have contracted someone else to make it for you, it is your burden to have to make sure that whoever's making your content is not like borrowing any material. And so I don't just mean sampled material, but also like, I made this comparison before, like if they want to take like Secret of the Forest and like quote a giant chunk of it in their like original song, that's also a no-no. And if he didn't know like this is Secret of the Forest, but then all of a sudden, like Mitsuda is claiming like, oh, actually this is Secret of the Forest, like, yeah, you got to make sure. And so, you know, maybe work with people who are also familiar enough with the law that they're not going to end up putting this kind of stuff in there by accident. Luckily for Mumbo Jumbo, these were not takedown requests. These were simply claims. So like it meant he lost monetization. But he was able to cut out the intro. Like if this had been stuff smack dab in the middle of his video, he would have had to mute segments of his video. He would have had to replace the audio. It would have been probably not great. But like he was able to cut out the intro and then submit the counterclaims and say, okay, it's good now. We've removed all the infringing material. This, also contrary to popular belief, is not an example of content ID misuse. This Warner Chappell was completely in their right to claim these videos. In fact, they would have been in their right to issue takedowns if they really wanted to. And this was actually probably the like least horrible thing they could have done. So this isn't an example of like YouTube is bad, ban YouTube as a platform. YouTube is bad maybe for lots of other reasons, but this is like things like this are probably a poor example of why YouTube is bad. There we go. That's my spiel.
Very good. Yes. All right. So we're going to talk about how to make money legally using copyright, right? Because you don't want any of those things to really happen to you, right? You want to make sure that you do things as legally as possible and there's no risk involved in terms of the revenue that you get for your covers. So first thing, distribute your music, guys. Just do it, okay? You're really not losing too much, and you never know if something might blow up and get, you know, thousands, hundreds of thousands or something of streams on Spotify. Like you don't know. So the sooner you're able to distribute your music, the better. You earn the money, right? You get that revenue, but then the original composer also gets their share. That's, you know, part of that whole US law. So and also making your music available only via direct digital download instead of doing that and streaming, that's only going to inhibit your earning potential, right? We've had a little bit of a talk before. There's a lot of people on Twitter who like to talk about how they make so much more money on, you know, like per download on Bandcamp versus how much money they make per stream on Spotify. That's comparing apples and oranges, guys. You cannot do that because a download, they can pay the $1 and listen to it as many times as they want. What if they listen to that 2,000 times, and that would be, you know, 2,000 streams? And what if that actually ends up being more than the $1 you would have gotten for that download? You don't know, right? So you cannot compare the two. There are two very different things, and so make sure that you also think about having your covers available for streaming, because that's just another way to get money. And then the whole copyright thing in terms of like PRO, performing rights organizations. So this is more for like original music, right? When you actually write music yourself. then you need to be a part of a performing rights organization. I've listed a couple from the US, and then SOCAN is Canada, but it differs per country. Each country has their own performing rights organization that you can, be a part of. But they are the ones that ensure that if someone else performs your composition, that's where the performing rights organization comes from, is if someone else performs your composition, you are entitled to royalties. And so that's another way to get some extra money in your pocket in terms of when you make actual original music. So you've got that. And then this one, we have sound recording digital performance royalties. So this is Sound Exchange, Resound in Canada. There's probably a couple others in different countries. Sound Exchange is the one in the US. So this, again, we talked about how they have two different types of rights, right? We have the composition right, and then we have the actual audio recording right. And so this is for the audio recording. So even if you make a cover, yes, you don't own the composition rights, right? You don't own that, but you do own your own recording. And that is also entitled to some royalties when it comes to being streamed on like radio, like digital radio or regular radio, Pandora, things like that. You get some money from that. It's not a ton, but it's still something.
Literally pennies.
Yeah, well,
yeah,
it's still something, guys.
Everything is just literally pennies.
Yeah, gotta start somewhere. And then, so you have different royalty pools depending on if you're a creator or if you're a performer. If you're a creator as well, then you're entitled to more royalties, right? That makes sense. And then another thing for originals, just a really quick one just to throw out there. If you have your own original and you want to license it out to other people to use in their media, right? So you're on the other end of this in a sense. You can upload your music to production music libraries. They're able to, put your music out there. People are able to check and say, I want to use that for my movie. I want to use that for my TV show. I want to use that for YouTube. And then you make an agreement, and then they pay you the license, they pay you for that so that they can use it in their media. So it's kind of on the other end of this whole copyright thing.
Could we explain PROs just a little bit more?
Sure. Go ahead.
Just because of explaining how they're relevant to this particular community. Like, if you're a cover artist, it's not like you put your cover song with a PRO. That's not how it works. I think Julia might be able to speak to this better than me.
The performing rights organizations speak to the specific, like the work itself. Remember at the beginning we spoke about the different streams of copywriting music, and we have the phonographic rights, but then we also have the rights having to do with the work itself. So that's what PROs cover. They cover performances of your written work. And this is not arrangements, this is original material. So if at a venue that is known for performances, if they perform your material, a cover band, let's say, or they blast it, like if they're playing it on the radio, any public performance of your work, this is where they technically pay into, let's say, BMI or ASCAP, or they pay into SOCAN, they pay into this royalty pool. And then once it's noted that they played your song, or that someone is going to be playing your music, like a choir is going to be playing your music, you can then report that to the performance rights organization and get your cut of the royalty there. So that's what this is for exclusively. It's not for any recording. So it doesn't matter if you have a recording and someone used your song in a video game. That's not what this is for. It's for performance. Hopefully that clarifies. It's a little confusing because there's so many streams here.
One of the interesting things is that, could you consider Twitch a venue? That's one of the new innovations of live streaming things is how does Twitch get a license for a cover song?
And I've wondered the same thing too. So if you're a popular, let's say Ninja is playing some video game music in the background, not as part of the game, but as he's doing something else. And is that not radio? Is that not a public performance? Where are we drawing the line? And this is something that DMCA and in Canada, the Canadian Broadcasting Act, because it was 1995. These don't account for these things because they could not have foreseen way back then that there were going to be such thing as streaming platforms or all of these user-generated content platforms, like how would they have accounted for this? So really, like if we're blaming things, it's not the platforms. We're blaming that the law is so far behind that they're not accounting for these things, and the platforms are trying to wiggle their way through this and figure out how can we exist within the law and not make our users angry, but also all the people that can like actually sue us, and like record labels that have millions of dollars to put into lawyers, like how can we not make them angry as well? As soon as there's a lawsuit to set a precedent for this kind of stuff, we're all boned. So this is what we're trying to avoid here, and we've got to do our parts to try to avoid that as well.
I believe that if you're performing a cover song at a venue, right, and that is the venue's responsibility to be the one to pay the royalty, right? Or
they pay a general fee to the performing rights organization, so they don't pay it like per play. It's like they pay their like they owe fees, and they should be paying. If they're not, then they should not be playing other people's music. Like that's
right. I was thinking of how that specifically works in the context of playing video game music at video gaming conventions. It's complicated. I don't.
Well, right, because then you're like, okay, well, does the gay lord are they paying the PROs, right? So then you're wondering, like, is the gay lord paying the PROs? Like, can't like so.
Yeah.
Man,
so this segues into a question which maybe we'll just cover right now, because someone asks what's the legal ramifications for writing arrangements for a school band and performing those arrangements. That's Blitz Spencer asking that. Well, really, like probably I'm seeing realistically like probably none, like not a lot of like if you're doing it at a school and you're writing like a video game music arrangement and you're performing it at your school, like I don't think that this is like, we're in trouble. You're like, if you were to do everything the proper way, it would be like, okay, we get print licenses to be able to do the arrangement of all the things, and then we can disseminate that or like distribute that to the band members, and then we pay the PRO so that they can the composers can get their cut. But I don't think this ever happens, right? And these things, like lots of things slip through cracks, and
I mean,
so
I don't think I wouldn't say never, but I would say like
in a school context, there hasn't been like a big legal battle.
I feel like schools probably are somewhat protected because it's an educational institute, you know what I mean? So
you could make that, or I would say that could be a legal defense if someone were to be like, you did not, then you could say, well, this is for educational purposes, and that would be your legal defense.
Possibly?
Right? Like, I don't know, like, but there I don't think there's a precedent for this kind of stuff.
No.
Usually it does fall under fair use wonkers is what he's saying, but like fair use because it's the defense, right? Like you can't just,
you'd have to be brought to court in order to use that as a defense. You can't just
but they would be unlikely to sue you because they know that could be used as a defense, if that makes sense. So
keyword is unlikely. Like, it's not impossible.
It's not, nothing here is impossible. We all could have our channels like deleted tomorrow. Okay. That's within the realm of possibility here. What we're doing is like we're skirting the law in the most finite of senses. Okay, we'll let Carlos go do that final slide and then try to answer some more questions.
Oh, yeah. Sounds good.
Let's just, so we have a lot of questions and we would love to discuss them.
Yes.
But there's just like general good practices that I think are helpful to remember. Do you guys want to do you want to do one of these each, or should I can just go through all of them if you want?
If you want to go through all of them, you can.
Sure.
Okay.
So these are like we've been talking about this kind of how like we've been telling you the law, right? And it is you and you know, lawyers interpret the law, and that's what courts do, is they interpret the law to see how, you know, how the law applies to certain situations. You can also do that yourself to some extent, and like and decide where the proper level of risk is for you. Like, you know, there are plenty of unlicensed cover albums on Bandcamp that are currently up and are currently generating revenue for the person who put them up there and not the original composer. Is it against the law? Yeah. Is anything happening against it? Probably not. Could something happen against it? Yes. Right. And it's up to you to decide, like, with your specific situation, like, are you gonna do the like everything legally right? Or are you just gonna do what you can? You know? And this is up. I'm not gonna get on my soapbox and explain, but this is up for. It shouldn't be up for you to decide, but it currently is up for you to decide.
Yeah.
Another one is just reading your contracts carefully. This more applies to like a work that you would accept as a like as a commissioned artist, like if you're recording a song for a game or composing something or doing something for somebody else. It you always know what you're getting into. Have someone that knows what laws are or how to interpret all the legalese, because you might not know if you're signing up for something really bad that could potentially significantly limit you in the future. Like Julia had a bit of a story about this. If you do want to share it.
Sorry, story about
The contract one.
Oh yeah. I'll share briefly.
Sure.
I had a contract where someone wanted to commission a song for a pilot episode of something that was basically for a school project, but they had wanted to expand upon this later and make it like a real thing. And their kind of grand dream was to make this a real show and have it airing and everything. But for the small fee they were offering me to make this intro song, basically the theme song, they wanted to have perpetual sync rights for everything that they may create in the future having to do with the franchise. So I immediately like, this is red flags. So now that we understand where the rights are, we can negotiate a little bit, hopefully as musicians, and just think, okay, well, first of all, by taking only the upfront fee, I'm giving up any sort of royalty splits. I'm giving up the ability to charge for multiple licenses for each different, like for if they were to make a video game, if they were to make a web comic, if they were to make different areas, I'm losing the ability to charge separately for that. And in speaking with entertainment lawyers, what they'll do is they'll tell you to add something like an option. So an option would be like, okay, if you were to do X, you will also pay me Y. So I will give you permission to use this for this. If you also do this, then you have to give me this, basically. Or if this generates more than X amount of revenue by da-da-da-da-da, then you have to pay me blah, blah, blah split. You can include things like this. So it's important to understand where your rights are as a musician so that you don't get screwed over by those contracts, because usually the people writing the contracts, I'm going to say, don't really fully understand your rights. So you need to know your rights.
Right.
Got to advocate for yourself. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, and know your rights. One last small thing. I mean, it's a small or big thing. Is consider incorporating your music business. If you're in the U.S., you can form something called an LLC, which is a limited liability company or corporation. I'm not sure. I mentioned it specifically here. I mean, it's generally good practice if you have a business, then keep your business income separate from personal income. But it's also good because it separates the assets, like your assets that belong to the business versus like your own personal stuff. For example, if a company were to sue you for some infringement you were doing, if you did not have an LLC, if you were not under the protection of a specified legal section of your company, then all the assets that you own personally could be targeted or by
Seized,
this
yeah.
company, or seized. Yeah, but if you have an LLC, stuff that is owned by the company, which is, I mean, if you're a sole proprietor, then where does the company start and where does the individual person end? That's different. And the type, as Mason is saying here, the type, there are different types of business. And formal incorporation might not be right for you yet. But there are different tax classifications or types of business you can incorporate as, have their own advantages and disadvantages. Not going to get into that here. That's a big topic. So is it time for questions?
It's time for
Ayo.
questions.
I'd like to
Okay,
start
we got
off.
some.
Do you guys have the spreadsheet open?
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, hold on. I'm going to switch back to this one. And then so I can have my screen back. Oh.
Yay!
Okay,
Yay.
now.
I want to.
Can we just clarify? Maybe we'll skip over ones that are more like personal that you could maybe ask Soundrop about, like send a message support. Like
yeah.
more of a
Let's just
personal
kind
thing.
of look more into the more general stuff.
I was saying we like highlight the stuff that's worth discussing between the three of us on stream.
Mhm.
Okay.
Like,
Well, you can only highlight, so you go for it, Carlos.
oh, okay. This funny one. There's one from Sebastian Wolf that asks, what licenses do I need to sell my covers as NFTs? I just learned what an NFT was like 2 days ago. So, if that shows you how far the law is behind
Oof.
music distribution, then you're witnessing the birth of a new art form or a new distribution form here. I don't know. Sebastian, tell me when you find out. I'd love to know. I'd love to know. Let's see. How about this one from Taro Tale, who asks, how are certain cover/remix producers able to offer some of their work as streamer friendly when they are not the original rights holder?
They can't.
They
Yeah,
can't.
They're
can.
lying to you.
They're
They're either like I think this again. This is like Sebastian, what he's said before. They are either like deliberately misleading you, or they are just like so unaware. But they can't.
Right.
Like
Legally,
yeah.
yeah, they don't
they
have
can
the rights.
they can tell you with their originals.
Yes.
Yes. And like even you might extend that to like that particular recording of that particular original, not if
Right.
someone else makes a cover. But anyway, yeah,
Right.
so you can't. How are they able to? They're misleading you. So I feel poorly for people who are like, oh wow, my favorite creator says I can use their covers and remixes. They're such a good person. But unfortunately, they're not such a good person because they can't grant you that right. And it sucks because we don't then want, okay, all of us creators out there. I hate that word, but whatever, creator. We gotta make sure we don't tell people that they can do this, because then if someone gets in trouble for using basically someone else's content that you gave them permission to use, then they're gonna, but so and so told me it's okay and they were lied to me, and they're gonna get so upset, and then they're gonna, like the cover community is gonna have a bad reputation. Don't do that.
It's just bad. It's bad because just because a cover artist says it's okay to use it does not give you legal clearance. So just be aware of that. The fact that you're at this panel, you're learning this now, it's good, because the more people who are aware, the more people who know this stuff, then the better off we will be, because we'll have less of these issues happening, right? So
Right. Another one from Tig's Voice, Tia in the chat. How much against the rules is it to do a cover on stream that you don't have the rights to? Is that I'm assuming that means on Twitch. Is that enforced or something that isn't usually judged? I have the Twitch music guidelines page up, which is actually really horribly depressing to read. It says, here are some examples of music content you may not use in Twitch streams or on-demand content. Cover song performance of a song owned by someone else, comma, with the exception of a live performance in your Twitch stream. It's like this is going back to what you were talking about earlier with like Twitch being a venue, and having a PRO associated with Twitch.
Right.
Like there's not really anything associated with that. Good news is what they're saying is that they say, if you do perform a cover song in a live Twitch stream, please make a good faith effort to perform the song as written by the songwriter, which is basically like
that's the derivative thing we were going back to.
They are saying you can do a live performance. They say that here. You can do a live performance of
until
a song
the PROs start to get angry at Twitch and then decide that that's public performance and that they need to start. Until that happens, you're safe performing it basically, but you're not safe just like playing it in the background. Does that make sense?
Right.
Like over your game, or like playing it while you're cooking. Like, yeah, has to be active performance. I'm guessing that's what this means.
Yeah. I mean, you should active performance of a song you don't own the rights to is okay. And like they mentioned stuff about not sampling the original song, which is I guess par for the course in terms of like licensing and stuff. They're probably just trying.
Well, like if you're taking a karaoke where someone just like faded down they did the phase cancellation on the vocal, but the back track is essentially the same. Like, beware of that. Perhaps.
Yeah.
That could be a flag.
Yeah. Here's another one from Nick the Newbie. How much does a YouTube cover artist need to worry about channel strikes if they have no plans to monetize their videos?
So
the same as if you plan to monetize.
Yeah,
it's the exact.
Doesn't matter.
No
it's the exact same. It does not matter.
It does
unfortunately,
not matter if you monetize it.
Yeah.
Or not.
Yeah. I mean, the yeah, it's just the fact that you're monetizing or not. In general, how much you need to worry about a channel strike depends what you're uploading.
Yeah.
Obviously, like, and I think what we've said before should give you an idea of like what licenses you should be getting, and if you're using other people's copyrighted material, and like how can you get it? How can you get it? Are you going to go ahead without it? Who knows? Okay. Featherdurg asks, how do you monetize covers of VGM on YouTube? Do you just wait for a claim and hope that the copyright holder happens to decide a revenue split instead of taking all the video's revenue? Or is there anything you can do beforehand to increase the odds of getting a split?
So
Is this asking first? Okay, go ahead.
I think they're asking, how does ad revenue work on YouTube? How do you monetize a thing on YouTube?
Because that's the first step, is you need to become the YouTube partner so that you can even get the monetization, and that's kind of a big step.
Well, you can have a video claimed, because YouTube will run your ad. YouTube runs ads on pretty much all videos,
Right.
I think, regardless if you're partnered or not. You can't, and I don't know where the money goes if an ad is running on your video and you're not partnered. I don't know exactly how that works. But
to YouTube,
yeah,
that's my guess.
But a claim can certainly happen on a video that is uploaded by someone who's not partnered, right? That makes sense.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's anything that you can do from the creator side, because that wouldn't make sense. It's the onus of the original rights holder to ensure that their stuff is in Content ID. The
only thing that I can think of is if you talk to your friends and maybe have a database of rights holders who are more likely to do a split versus than a flat out claim, and then just kind of like know like, oh, Atlas is good with splits, so if you cover Persona, then you should be okay. Like, that's the only way that I can like really think about it. But do you want to limit yourself that way creatively? You know, with this law stuff, that's another big question, is like, it's the ethics, it's the law, and it's like, how much do I feel copyright is limiting me creatively? Do I feel like personally I'm gonna, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Anyway,
it's complicated.
The
way I approach this is that, like, I mean, full disclosure, my videos on YouTube are monetized. I don't know if that's like perfectly legal, but I do have some videos, a very small minority, that are claimed by the original rights holder, like Atlas included, and they have specified a policy. I don't remember what exactly it is, but ideally you'd have a claim on every video, which would be that like every composer has put their song into the database and they have decided how the money is supposed to be handled.
And you don't rely on ad revenue. Like,
or just don't, and that's the truth. Just don't rely on that, and just get your stuff licensed. Right. But that's basically it. We probably have time for one or two more.
I mean, I kind of quickly want to address Funbill.
Sure.
The VGM DB. So the other one, if you can't find like a soundtrack on VGM DB, you can go to Easy Song Licensing. There's a search database. You can go in there, type in whatever the track name is, see if it loads up. At least this is through Soundrop, okay? Like, Soundrop says if anything loads up in Easy Song Licensing that you search for, then it's licensable through Soundrop. So like Battle of the Windfish, right? That one is actually licensable because it's actually somehow available through Easy Song Licensing. It's really complex, but basically Soundrop says if it loads through Easy Song Licensing, then they are able to actually license it. So that's the other website that I would go to just to check and see if it shows up there.
Because I'm not seeing... there was one thing that I saw discussed with it, people not appreciating the Soundrop split, right? Versus the DistroKid upfront. Now, okay, this is a personal choice for you guys. Just so you know, DistroKid charges money upfront and you pay them to keep your music up on platforms continuously. And now if your songs are getting a whole bunch of streams and downloads continuously, then maybe that's worth it for you. But it ought to be said that if you guys see a cover that you think ought not to be licensable up on on Spotify or any digital store, it's probably because it was licensed through DistroKid, who does not do the proper due diligence necessarily of securing that license before it goes live. And then the onus is on you if you have not double checked that it's licensable. you might be liable to these takedowns. And this has happened to people that we know, where like an entire country, they can't see any of this stuff anymore because DistroKid just decides like, oh, Canada, no.
Doesn't exist.
I think it was like Jonathan Young or like Rashad, like, Canada, oh, your stuff doesn't exist in Canada anymore. Bye bye. So we don't know. Like, there's some processes behind the scenes, and if David were here, he'd let us know. But like, not all distribution platforms are created equal, and you got to watch out for that. So you got to make that decision and do your research, guys.
Yeah, and we can talk about it more in like the Discord as well, about like the whole differences between like Soundrop and DistroKid. If you want us to lay it out, we can definitely do that.
We'll do that. We'll share the slides.
Yes, we will do all of
sound
that.
off.
We're not lawyers, but we like it. We like this stuff.
Yeah. So I think that's it, right? I think we're just right on time.
I think we could all talk about this for a lot longer.
Oh, we definitely could. We could. But all right, so we'll wrap it up here. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys learned. We hope you guys learned a lot. We wanted to thank VGM Together for letting like us just be like host this panel, be on this panel, just get this information out there for you guys. We will be answering more questions in the Discord, so if you have more questions, feel free to join their Discord and ask us there, and we will do our best.
Panels discussion.
Yeah, we will do our best to answer any questions that come up there.
And Tera, are you performing today?
Oh, yes, I am performing.
What time?
4:15 p.m. PST, so 7:15 p.m. EST.
Oh, I know what I'm doing at 4:15 p.m. PST today. I also know what I'm doing at 6:20 p.m. PST today.
Oh, what is that?
The Paper Mario thing.
Oh,
is that today? Yeah.
Yes,
is that 6:20?
I think that's. Yep, I think that is. So.
Okay, and then Julia has a thing tomorrow, right?
You have another panel tomorrow.
Nice.
Awesome.
So you will see all of us throughout the weekend. And thank you again. And please keep watching VGM Together.
Bye.
Bye.
Don't get sick. Don't get